Well, welcome everyone. This is an exciting webinar that we've got for you today, very discussion-based, and we're interested to hear what you have to say as well, so we'll work on our chat. But we've got folks from all over the place, so good morning, good afternoon, good evening. We are going to talk about getting product management shit done with ChatGPT. So if that didn't pique your interest, I don't know what will. My name is Kate Fuchs. I'm going to moderate today. I'm a product manager with the 280 group, and I will let our esteemed discussion and presenter individuals introduce themselves. So I'll turn it over to Dean first, and you can pass it on from there.
Thank you for that wonderful introduction, Kate. I am Dean Peters. I'm the one with the face for radio. I joined 280 Group this past summer after about 20 years in the trenches doing product management. And before that, software engineering as a real-time systems integrator and engineer. If my face does look a little familiar, you may have seen me speak on other places, perhaps even sing once in a while on topics like Agile and product management, perhaps Product Tank, Product Camp, Red Hat Agile Day, Pandemonium. And for some odd reason, my on and off blogging has landed me in the position in the Agile and product management lexicon as the zookeeper of product boards, dangerous animals of product management. So if you're getting flashbacks from seeing me, that's where they're from. Elad, I'll hand that off to you.
Thanks for that, Dean. So I'm Elad Simon. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Craft.io, a product management platform. I've been doing product management and go-to-market management for the past 15 or 20 years or so. Just don't want to disclose my age, so I'm going to say, just going to keep it vague. And I've been excited to be participating in several webinars, including a couple with our friends from 280 Group. And so really looking forward to talk about this very exciting topic. So I think we can get going.
Do it. All right, so just to get you guys started, we kind of want to know, obviously, who our audience is. So take a moment to take this little quick poll. What is your level of proficiency of generative AI? So do you use it on a daily basis? Do you use it just time to time, rocking the API for fine tuning, or you have no clue what we're talking about? So go ahead and fill that out for us so that we can see who is in the room. I'll give you a quick minute to do that. And we are working on the chat. I believe our host, Elad, can you see if in settings you can change that?
Sorry?
Can you see if in the settings for the Zoom call, if you can change the ability for everyone to message each other?
Oh, that sounds quite complex to me, but I'll try.
Oh, it's working now. Oh, wait. Okay. Can you guys see each other's comments? That's the question. No. Okay. So we're going to work on that. Let's make sure that we can see each other's.
And people may have to look at the bottom of their Zoom, the lower right-hand corner where it says, may say host and panelists. There's a little drop down for everyone. I think if they select that, they might be able to do that as well.
All right.
Yeah.
I think we got our results in.
All right.
Nice. Let's see them.
Can you guys see the results or no?
Nope.
Not yet.
How can I show the results? I can share the results if you want.
Yeah, let's share them.
All right. So first of all, there's still a few people kind of answering, so let me just kind of click on end poll, and that's it. That's it. Come on, last one. All right, done. All right, share results.
There we go.
There we go.
Okay, interesting.
So we have what? About, where are we now? Oh, okay. So about 63% of people use this, in some shape or form, 11%, like 10% or so on a daily basis. Okay, so you probably know more than us. That's good. And then from time to time, 50% of people. And then 35% of people are honest enough to admit they have no clue what this is. So that's fantastic. That's great. And then rocking the API, which is, the super expert. I think they've just released.
And went last night went live for general availability. So so big news there too.
Indeed. All right. Well, I think we got our understanding. Should we move on?
Let's move on. Thank you, guys.
All righty. So let's get started. So I guess starting with what is generative AI. So in case, I thought, the most appropriate thing to do in the world is to ask ChatGPT what is generative AI. And so there you go. Here it is in front of you. In case, Dean, you wanna take this, or you wanna? I'm not gonna read this whole thing. Feels like a very long-winded paragraph. Do you want to talk through what your view of the world of generative AI?
Well, yeah, like I said, for me, generative AI, just is really synthesizing responses, based off of. So imagine it's a sounding board. It's been listening, and gathering information here. And now when you start asking questions, it's synthesizing responses predictably based off of what it knows in general, as well as what it knows, what you fine tune that with. So that's just sort of it. If I were to go to ChatGPT and say, explain it to me like I'm 10, perhaps that would have been the explanation there. So that's sort of the layman's term if you need to describe it real fast to your bosses who may not be technical.
Cool. Yeah, and I think, for those who are more, let's say, into the actual thing, of course, a large language model, which we are seeing more and more of nowadays. So this is ChatGPT specifically is the OpenAI one. Based on the OpenAI one, and we have now, how many now? 4 or 5, right? So with Lambda, we have Llama, which is the recently announced Facebook one, I believe.
Yeah.
And Lambda is the Google one, and then we have, of course, Open. Those are the 3, I would say, main ones out there. Of course, there are many more LLMs out there on which this type of technology is built on. And one of the things that obviously, I think ChatGPT took from generative AI as a concept is this idea of actually, using like language and text and really synthesizing the capabilities of generative AI in principle, because generative AI is not necessarily for text, right? So it's a general concept that says I can take anything, I can learn from that, and I can then create, similar patterns based on, instructions, kind of thing, right? So that's the concept behind that. Specifically, ChatGPT, takes that notion and applies that to language, which ends up being quite a cool, if nothing else, quite a cool thing that you can interact with. And it at least feels quite intelligent and quite conversive, if that's a word.
Yeah, and if I were to add to that, just from a zoo animal perspective here, think of the chameleon. All right, where it can sort of blend in to its environments here, or even maybe the octopus that blends in and uses its environment to respond to whatever the conditions in the situation are at the time. So they can generally and so they've taken this huge amount of data, whatever these models are, and I think Elad, you did a good job of enumerating just some of them. We could spend all day going through the 4 models you talked about, going through whatever the AI, what do you call it, OpenAI mafia, whatever they're working on, those 10 individuals. So we could go all day talking about them, but the general idea here is someone has Parrot. In fact, I think there was at some point somebody had talked about it being a sort of a sneering parrot at some point. I think I like Chameleon Octopus only in that it fine-tuned the right way. It blends in as opposed to being confrontational, although I suspect we'll want to cover that topic a little as well.
Yeah, and I guess this is probably a good opportunity to ask people to like submit their questions, I guess, in the chat. I think right? Kate, you're in the driving seat on this. What you prefer questions in chat?
Yeah. Yep, you can put them in both places, but I am monitoring the chat. That sounds great. And I see some questions already, so throw them in there. I'm wondering if either of you guys would like to touch on the underlined piece here that even ChatGPT will admit.
So in order to avoid creating drama by our own perils, we've decided to use this quote directly from the horse's mouth, as they say. And so I one of the quotes that I like, and it's interesting, it raises concerns about potential, content. I'm not sure about, without going to the whole misinformation, manipulation of public opinions, I would just say that as a source of data, let's say it this way, it's still in its infancy. That's I would say that I'm going to give one example of that, if it's okay, just to before going in there. Which is, one of my my own examples. And so I've asked ChatGPT, and this is just a personal question for me because I am as far as I'm concerned, I'm the CEO of Craft.io. As far as I know, and so I asked ChatGPT on two different instances. I think most of you know, and if you don't, then it's a good time to mention that. ChatGPT is trained on a data set that ends in September 2021. So it isn't yet updated with real time. And there is a big reason why it's not updated with real time. And there's an issue with large language models being updated on a real time basis. We'll leave that in a minute. But regardless of, even with that, I've asked him who's the CEO of Craft.io, and he gave two different answers, as you can see, and both of them are wrong. And so, and I'm not using that, of course, not at all using that example to say, it's not useful, or, it doesn't have the ability to do things, but as a source of data. And Dean, I think we'll talk about that in a couple of minutes when we talk about the use cases. As a pure
I love that you're setting the table like this, and I know some of you just want to dive right into the what, but without understanding some of the things that Elad is talking about here. For example, he's talking about what they call hallucinating. And if you don't understand, how some of this works here, you might find that what you're doing in the how and the what might put you in trouble. So, this is important ground we're covering here in terms of, here you have the CEO asking ChatGPT, who is the CEO? And it gives two different people. Did you know either of these individuals?
No. And so that's other, they don't. And I think that's I think that's one of the things that is interesting about like understanding LLMs, right? So they are giving statistically plausible answers based on their knowledge rather than the facts. And which is a very, when you think about that sentence, that's a very, very, very different thing than the actual facts, in a way. So that's just I just want to give that as I wanted to give that as an example. But I see a lot of people really dying to dive into the actual
getting shit done.
I know. Before we do that, if it's okay, it's just worth mentioning just for a moment. And I think everybody knows that. And I know it's a little bit gossipy, and I know it's, but this is indeed like, the next battlefield when it comes to large companies and large tech. Obviously, I suspect you've all read about Google's, drop in, $100 billion in valuation in market cap because Bard made a mistake, basically, again, which is not an impossible thing to happen, but made a mistake, and then we have other people on the call. That's interesting.
I'm not sure what's
Yeah, if you're,
working there.
I'm hearing whispering, but yeah, you might want to mute your mics, peeps.
I am.
Yeah.
And so and so that's so anyway, just to say that's like definitely the next battlefield. Of course, Elon Musk always has to jump in as well, and he says he's going to build the best one. And he also mentioned, and again, that's an super interesting topic, which we're probably not going to go deep into. He basically blames ChatGPT of being too woke, if nothing else.
Yeah.
And so he wants to have something more. I don't know. I'll leave I leave the interpretation.
Right, and this gets into some of what we talk about in product management. This, and for those of you who are working in data science and artificial intelligence as product managers, how many times do you have the fight over narrow vertical slice over engineers and data scientists saying, well, let's build the whole infrastructure first. Let's get it right first. I think that's some of the slings and arrows that Sam Altman over at the CEO of OpenAI is taking, and where he's taking the stance is, how are we going to get this to work in the wild responsibly without releasing it into the wild and getting feedback here? I tend to lean on, let's get this out into the wild. Let's make things happen. Let's go ahead and cut our teeth, but in the process, let's do it without making these Pyrrhic victories. Let's win these battles with, let's keep, as I teach in my classes here, let's keep the blast radius small. And so the things that Elad is talking about is, for example, you get hallucinations. So, oh, well, Bing had mistakes in their demo too, and Google had mistakes in their demo, and these mistakes. And let's take a step back and think about the ChatGPT and other types of generative AI here. Understand that 5 years ago, no one was talking about general purpose AI. Here now we have ChatGPT, and we can start getting real work done with it here. But as we get real work, how do we get the right thing built as to building crap faster, and how do we do it? How do we get the signals back without colluding it with a bunch of noise? Now, I think someone made a comment up here way earlier, like, oh, you want to start with why? How novel. And that's interesting. As you start work, as you think about it and you sit down, let's say you plunk down your $20 US a month to start playing with ChatGPT Plus. And so now you're trying to solve for a problem. So I think let's go to the slide here. I think it's slide. Yeah, there we go. So as I was preparing for this and was just exploring, I did this a couple months ago, actually. I said, can I pull through the work here? Can I pull through a actual work that a product manager does? I think what was frustrating me at the time was seeing a lot of parlor tricks around prompts. Oh, you can fill out the lean canvas. And so someone says, oh, here's a prompt to do the lean canvas. So please fill out the lean canvas for this solution. Now, it was interesting because around the same time I was listening to a podcast, I think it was Lenny's podcast. I think it's Lenny Rachatsky. I hope I said the name right. He was interviewing Melissa Perry, two names you should know in product management. And Melissa Perry was talking about, well, you could fill out the lean canvas, but if you fill the boxes full of junk, then what you get in the end is junk. ChatGPT is no difference. All right. It could be a huge accelerant for your work and amplification of your work, or it could be a huge, garbage in, garbage out machine for you, delivering crap faster. So for me, I start from as I found myself getting more productive here, I'd say, okay, as I try to solve for a set of problems here, let's not just dive into the solutions. We got a lot of persons here like, well, how would I write a prompt for this? Well, how would I write a prompt for that? And it sort of reminds me what I teach my classes in both digital product management, agile product management. Our customers, our stakeholders, our engineers, our data scientists, and other people, they often come running to us with solutions. I would imagine you've had a boss run into your office. Hey, we need to add this, generative AI here. And just 6 months ago, or maybe a year ago, they were the same people running into your office. Hey, we need to do NFT. And before that, blockchain. And before that, so you see people putting the cart before the horse here. But as product people, we need to take a step back for that. We need to take what they know solution speak. That's the language they speak. That's fine. It's not because they're dumb. It's not because they're hurtful. It's not because they're stupid or anything like that. It's the language they speak, but it's our job to translate that and move that conversation into the problem space for a while. So how do we do that with ChatGPT? Well, think about your storyline. Think about ChatGPT almost in a theatrical manner here. Let's give it so that you talk about its 3 stages here. It's right on the ChatGPT. It talks about the 3 steps. You basically help set the context. Then you go through this fine tuning of train and reward. And then finally you start asking it to fill in the boxes. Problem is we all jump to step 3. So I don't know, any thoughts there, Elad? So before I talk about this particular Amazon working backwards method and how I walk through it end to end.
Well, I would say, I mean, just one thing to add before you jump in. I would say, and again, to add to your points earlier, when you once you start playing with it, I see there's quite a lot of people who've been playing around with the tool for a little bit, right? And some people have been using it on a daily basis. You'll get used to the notion that you kind of have to scan through what you have to your point, Dean, you have to think through what you're actually asking. And of course, by the way, that doesn't mean if you want to play with it just for your own recreational activity, which I do ever so often, and that's super fun anyway. So I do that, and that's that's why I showed you the CEO example from before. But beyond that, you want to ask questions in a thoughtful way so that it actually gets as much context as possible rather than be cryptic about it. Of course, it does. The language model itself is quite powerful, as in it is quite responsive. It is quite like communicative in a way, but you still want to give it as much context as possible. And the second thing, and for me, that's one of the most important things, is you're going to need to verify what's coming out of this. And you're going to specifically need to be very careful, because that's one of the areas that I see a lot of people using this in terms of market research. You're going to need to be specifically careful when it comes to fact checking and fact validation. There isn't, as far as of now, there isn't a source or validation kind of functionality. I think that's coming, and I know Google is adding that to Bard as part of the solution. And it's one of the biggest hurdles, I would say, right now, especially when it comes to facts. So I think when you're using things like methodologies, and you'll see that now in Dean's example in a minute or so, that's less, I would say, sensitive. But if you're working in a company, that is a music app, and you're trying to do your market research on what music apps are out there, you'll need to be very careful with ChatGPT to a degree that it might not be your best solution to use, right? So I don't think ChatGPT is here to replace, for now at least, not to replace search engine as sources of curated information. That's just my 2 cents of advice.
I agree. I entirely agree. In fact, I tell people at this point, couple things. Your job is not going to be replaced with AI at this point in time. However, your job is going to be taken from people who've learned how to use the tool where it's at right now. And so what Elad is talking about, something really important. Think about 10 years ago, maybe a little longer, when we were all learning Ruby on Rails, even just dabbling with it. And it had this concept of scaffolding. I see, as we try to get real work done in the world of product management, using this as a similar scaffolding tool. And just like when you used a tool like Ruby on Rails, you gave it a data model, you gave it other certain information here, you told it about endpoints, and then it generated code, but you were warned constantly, do not move that code into production here. Take the same stance when you're trying to pull through work end to end. You'll notice in this scenario, I actually, the worst kept secret on the web, it's funny you mentioned music, is my past career as an opera singer and being in the theater for a long time. And with that, you start then with the why, and you say, look, first let's gather our thoughts about a problem, not the solutions. Let's first ask questions about what are some of the pain points here. So you see this session I started here, and there's actually several questions. The Amazon working backwards, I think it's like 6 or 7 steps, depending on who you ask. And I would imagine some people said, I'm using Amazon working backwards. Give me the press release for a solution like that. You're not going to get anywhere with that. What I did was did a series of questions first. Like, first of all, are you aware of this process? I didn't know I have trained or not. No, I said, yes, I'm aware of it. Okay. Then I gave it a persona stance, basically stealing, okay, take on the character. Imagine yourself, ChatGPT, like being myself, a senior product manager, parachuted into an initiative where I'm going to be having my next 2 months are going to be all these conversations here. Can you simulate for me an Amazon working backwards method, walk through the steps of the process to help me shape the type of communications, conversations, artifacts, and other interactions I'm going to have on this topic? And I used, so you'll see on that second prompt, they're saying, hey, I want to do this as a simulation. And that means I understand some of the rules are, and some of that reward and response are now, okay, we understand this. So we're treating this just like the fourth wall theater. We're going to remain in character. So some of the information we're going to give you is to fill in the blanks. And we're leaving you to be the human and the adult in the room to figure that out. However, think about it. My first 2 days, I've been in a job for a week. We've all been there as product managers. We're parachuted in. What if we could say, look, here's telling me about what you know about some of the problems. Tell me what you know about some of the pain points. Who is impacted by these? What are some of the things are they doing now to solve for these? So you notice I've gone through a series of questions with ChatGPT, simply getting into the why and into the who. At that point, it'll probably give me some solutions that are valid or not. And I don't say, give me let's talk about all these solutions. I'll actually zero in and do some fine tuning. So now we've taken this top of this funnel, the problem space, and we understand the who and the what, and we've talked about how they're solving for it now. And now I'm getting into the neck of this funnel here. So, all right, let's zero in on a particular problem. In this case, it was eggs being transported to a store. And I was like, okay, well, let's do the press release on a group. And you'll notice I didn't say the solution that's looking to solve this problem. So you notice that third prompt there. Write me the press release from the stance of, we're about to start unpacking this problem. What it did then is, as I was able to ask a few more prompts, and I got a series of slides on these, where it's like, okay, now let's talk about the FAQ. There's where I would look for factual inaccuracies. There's where I might look for gaps. We don't have any further slides for that. And then I would ask it a few more questions. So as we got to each stage, by the end, I did this on a weekend, about 1 hour. You think about 1 hour of investing time in a productive conversation like that, that's going to help me guide me in real conversations I'm going to need to have. And you could do this. You're following the optimal product process here. You're going through that. Hey, help me start shaping my business case. What type of conversations? But you need to start with the why, then fine tuning and narrowing down the how, and then get into the what. Just don't jump into these. Here's the prompt for filling out the business canvas for user story mapping. I have taken story mapping all the way into user stories into creating a CSV that I could import into Jira. And I would imagine within the next few months, you're going to see Jira plugins. They're going to help you write your user stories, but they're going to be garbage in, garbage out if you don't, make sure the personas and are well understood, and the how is around the problem space, not the solution space. So I'll get off my pulpit now, and my burninating questions here.
Thanks for that, Dean. Okay, do you want to take some questions, or do we want to?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Dean. And I think that was a really helpful, just looking at the chat and through some things in the Q&A, that was helpful to see sort of the progression and how you could use it to work for you instead of, against you. So we do have some questions. Some are in the chat for everyone and some in the Q&A. So I do want to start with, it sounds like sort of at this point, ChatGPT could be used for practicing PM skills, which is sort of what you just, rolled through. And you did say you've used it to create, user stories and whatnot, all the way down to that level. So what would be kind of your advice at this point to either use ChatGPT to hone your skills as a PM, or would you say, hey, jump in and try to get it to actually do some work for you?
For me, I'll speak, but I'm going to give Elad some time too and talk about it, because I know his whole product helps answer that question. For me, learn how to speak to the problem space first. Learn how to reframe those people running into the room, that hippo, that zebra, that seagull manager running into the room with a great idea, and reframe. And because honestly, I could show you a bunch of parlor tricks. Well, here's how you do this form, and here's how you do Teresa Torres's opportunity solution tree. Here's how you do Jeff Patton style user story mapping. But it becomes a big garbage in, garbage out machine if you're not taking time to fine tune. That's why the API is exciting to me. I'm probably going to be feeding it user stories, blog posts, things that I've written in the past, and saying, in the voice of Dean Peters, write the following.
Yeah. So I think, I'm gonna not contradict you, but compliment you, if it's okay, Dean.
Okay, that's great.
So ChatGPT, again, for everybody who's played with it, it's a fantastic tool. For me, it's a fantastic learning tool in a way. Again, to a degree. I think because it can give you, again, this is my learning style, and it's not like everybody's learning style. I love learning from examples. And I think one of the benefits and the abilities that I would say probably the most impressive abilities of ChatGPT is to dress up a concept with an actual example. It really is one of the nice, and I think, Dean, you've shown that here. But you've done it in a very, we met a while before, and you're a very methodological dude, and you've done it the right way, and I commend you on that. But if you just want to figure out how does something work, you've heard a topic or you've heard a thing, not necessarily to get ChatGPT to do it for you, but you just want to educate yourself on it. One of the nicest things you can do is like take your own use case, whether it's your app or your feature that you're working on, and just tell ChatGPT to dress it up with whichever methodology or, again, whatever it is that you're trying to learn. And that's a very, very powerful way of learning things. So I've done this, with some of the stuff that, some of the things that, I agree. So I think that's really a nice way of doing things, because one of the hardest things when you read materials on the web is that, you read something, it might have an example, but that example might be so far remote from what your life is. If you're working on a fintech product for B2B, and you get an example of a music app for consumers, you're just like, okay, I can't rewire this into my head well. And this is really a place where ChatGPT goes in so well, and just dressing it up without the effort invested in doing all that, right?
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. We got to take some swings. We got to have some fun with it too. I was stuck on an airplane on a tarmac, and I'm sitting here with ChatGPT, almost in a, I wouldn't say call it therapist mode, but it was sort of like, okay, what are some jokes I could crack with the person next to me? Or I was actually exploring your little things, what I call tiny acts of discovery. So I actually agree with you. Look, I talked about doing the workflow. Now, could I have done the workflow that I did about a month ago, back in November when the early adopters came out? No, I was probably like, hey, show me what you can do with the story map just to see its limitations.
Yeah.
What I found out real quick was scaffolding and simulation, a large or small, but especially with tiny acts of discovery, like you talked about, Elad, help you learn the nuances that help you do the entire workflow. So you're absolutely right with that.
Absolutely. And then I think the second use case, I suspect, I see a lot of people in the chat mentioning this as well. The second use case, which I think is, I would say, bluntly obvious when it comes to generative AI, especially in the language space, is to use it for copy stuff, as in creating copy. And this is, and I'm not I'm specifically not saying, write your user stories or your epics, because that's not creating copy. That's very different. That's actually doing your job in a way. But which, by the way, it can do as well. But that to Dean's point, if you just parachute it into that, it's gonna be a proxy.
Do it at your own hazard without
exactly.
If you don't think it's
it's not gonna solve your problem. But if you want to create like micro copy, like for a release notes or copy for release notes or micro copy for a call to action button on your app, ChatGPT, I mean, it's splendid for this. And especially for people who are not they're not comfortable in writing, this is really a very classic use case. If you haven't tried it, again, I mean, for those who are on the call who haven't tried it, just do it. I mean, it's really, really powerful. And of course, and again, I keep saying the same warning again and again, always check it, always make sure that, you're kind of, so that it doesn't end up like, spitting out something that is completely inappropriate or completely irrelevant for your use case. But it really helps you get started when it comes to writing. I'm not a big writer. I'm not a very comfortable writer. I would say I like speaking more than writing, I would say, for sure. And so for me, it really helps when it comes to just writing a skeleton of a blog. It's fantastic. It really is. And I will never take that and copy it into my blog, but it's a really good starting point and gives you some ideas of structure and all this.
Absolutely. Yep. I'm all about the 7 points of a story arc. In fact, where I've gone in is been a director, a senior director, a head of product, where I have these geniuses who report to me, and I'm certainly not the smartest person in the room, but the one area I've been able to help them, and the one area that I think I've been able to keep their career from being replaced by AI has been able to make them great storytellers. Well, ChatGPT, experimenting with the way Elad's talking about, is a great way to do that. I was messing around with, hey, how would I tell this? For example, let's say you give it 5 user stories. You're going to fine tune it and say, okay, I want to write a related user story on this about the mobile app. And you give it a personality, you're a product manager. Now you decide, let's look at it from a slightly different angle. Hey, how would I write this in the voice of Louis Black, the comedian doing the Netflix special? How would I write it in the voice of Garrison Keillor doing, and so and what it does, it starts actually just like a user story map. When you hear Jeff Patton talking about it, first of all, it helps you take those big rocks and smack them into, what do you call it, the boulders, and smash those into big rocks, smack those big rocks into smaller rocks, and then ultimately smash them into the pea gravel that are your user stories here. It also can help you find those gaps. I didn't even think about presenting it from this angle here. So do that type of exploration in different voices, in different, again, scenarios and scaffolding. Ask it for example, what would be a simulation? I'm in a brainstorming meeting. I heard someone talking about in product market, in one of the comments here, they're in product marketing. Why not have that conversation saying, hey, your 4 personalities in the form of a table, give me what each person might brainstorm on this particular topic here. Just to prepare you for the meeting. It could be you walk in the meeting, you still get blindsided, but maybe the blindsiding isn't so severe.
Yep, thank you. That's perfect. And I think we've talked a lot about, examples and storytelling, and that's something that, PMs take to heart and know that really speaks volumes along with our data. So I want to get to the proficiency level and the confidence level of our generative AI. So we've talked a lot about things that, hey, garbage in, garbage out. So, how can we understand the proficiency level and the confidence that we can, accurately give to some of these tools? Is there any way to measure that as a, recipient?
Ask it.
Go
ahead, Elad.
I'll give my 2 cents about it. One, at the moment, there really isn't a good way. It's the shortest and most real answer that you can have right now. There really isn't a good way of measuring, and that's why I don't love to use it as a fact, as a matter of fact. One of the things, I think this is obvious, but I'll mention it just very briefly. One of the things that the reason why people love ChatGPT and chat in general is that it is very decisive. It gives you a single, one of the biggest advantage, quote unquote advantages it has versus search engines is that it's definitive. It gives you one answer. Here is it. Here it is. That's it. That's what I think. However, because we can't validate it, and you end up being, and I know the limitations, and I've known them from the beginning, and it's really easy to go into that trap anyway, like you read it and oh my God, that's so persuasive. That's it. This is probably true. The reality is, again, for facts and for again, everything to do with like market research, etc., I just wouldn't recommend it. When it comes to methodologies, I would say its accuracy is fine, but in any case, it's not, again, there's no way of saying, oh, this is like 95% accuracy, etc. That's not there yet, nor is, by the way, and again, that's a conversation going on right now with Google as well, in terms of validated answer versus non-validated answers, right? So that's, again, those are things that are probably coming.
Mm-hmm.
When are they coming?
Yeah, I would agree. This reminds me, I've a pretty long background in natural language processing technologies, from the rudiments of Lucene up through Solar and Elastic. And I remember one of the things that was happening was people were saying, well, put the ranking score out there for people to see. They found that was a horrible usability, active usability there. You found people actually starting to argue, why did this only get 86, ranked as 86%? Why did this get ranked? And so now the conversation starts moving away from trying to shape the conversations. And that's what a lot of our work is influence without authority, through shaping solutions through greatly shaped conversations. And no, the argument became, well, you're scoring at this, or what about this, or gaming the algorithms here. And I think we're going to see that history repeat itself here. I haven't had enough time. The API has only been out, GA for about, I don't know how many hours. So I don't know if they are going to offer any sort of relevancy score, but just understand we've all been down this path before a couple times. It never worked out well. I think Elad is I wouldn't even care if it said it was 100% sure, even though I've asked it, give it some certainty here, and it's given me, I would still fact check. I would use it for scaffolding, for simulations, for helping me fill in the blanks, for helping me to understand what I need to do next in my workflow here. But if I'm looking for a high degree of accuracy right now, good luck. It's not there, and they say that it's not there. In fact, ChatGPT quite often says at the bottom. Now, if you're pre-training it with user stories you've written, and you look at the user stories and you can generate them, which I've done, okay, that now I've narrowed the topic down so narrow that it has less wiggle room. But in those more ambiguous areas, yeah, you put yourself at peril if that's 5 minutes before a meeting, you generate a few slides, bang, you walk into the meeting here, and then you find out that there's a huge error or gaping hole in the thought.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. So really what I'm hearing, and I see a lot of chatter in our chat about, relevance and how can we use this in our day to day. And, what I'm hearing from you is really making sure that we train it in the way that we want to use it. So we have to make sure that we're giving
Fine-tune, train, narrow down. Yeah. Right. So, start with the why, start with the problem space, take that funnel, get narrow, get very narrow, get very tiny. You'll at least the errors will become much more conspicuous much faster.
Sure. Is there any people are asking for example of that type of storytelling or getting down to the narrow? I know we shared, maybe we can go back to that slide of the Amazon one really quickly if folks were here.
Do you have a chance like that example like open somewhere that you can kind of share it? I'm just kind of curious because a lot of people are asking for that, I think, on the chat. So
I know that there's, if you go to I think it's actually ChatGPT, how it works, they have a page there which gives you the 3 major steps. Within those steps, they give you some sub steps there. So I think there's I'll find that link real quick here.
Okay.
Yeah, how it's good, but it's it comes right out of their page there on how it works there. And introducing. So let me see if I can find that and get the link up here.
Sure.
But it's right here on the page here, about halfway down. They talk about the 3 major steps here. I would look at that from the stance of that first step is problem space, the why and the who. Maybe that second step starts getting into the narrowing down process. And then that third step is where you start saying, okay, fill in the blanks. I'm confident enough here.
Sure. Thank you. So I know we've got about 10 minutes left, and I do want to get to a very thought-provoking question that I'm interested to hear what you guys say. I don't know if we want to skip ahead a couple of slides to share our ending poll as we talk through it, because I want to get to that, as well as the special offers that we have for both Craft.io and 280 Group. So let's go ahead and share this, and we'll, as we share and you guys can answer, I would love to hear both of your takes on, considering the very rapid process and the evolution of these tools through the years. What are your thoughts on projecting ahead 5 years from now? How do you think ChatGPT or other generative AI can change product creation and growth? So yeah, let me share this poll, and I'm not sure who wants to take that first, but we're trying to look into the future.
I've done all the talking so far. I'll let him pick it up from here. I've been overly gabby.
You're launching the poll, Kit?
Yes.
Yep.
All right, Elad, do you want to take that? Where do you see us going next? Whether 5 years might be a little too long, but where do you see the next steps?
Well, I think let's get people's answers first, no? Before I share my thoughts, or not.
We can.
I wanna get
Sure. Yep, we've got folks, lots of answers coming in. Starting to slow a little bit. Yeah, thank you for the links. Dean did put the link to a number of articles and examples for those of you looking for sort of the example of how you might go through.
I think Kate, regardless, I think we'll probably share with the audience here a couple of examples, like live examples and slides. I think it sounds like a lot of people are just looking for that. So I think maybe you and I can paste a couple of them on a couple of slides and just share with folks.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Thank you. Yep, and Dean just dropped another one too. So, all right. Looks like we're slowing down. So I'm gonna end our poll in 3, 2, 1. All right, here's our share results. So here we are.
Wow. Now, see, this is where I want to have the conversations on the no there. But Elad, you go ahead. I'm curious.
So I am not on the. I think I'm with the audience. I would say product management as a role is quite a complex role for, I think, almost any type of AI. I mean, specifically generative AI, which is very, it's very specific format. In the sense, I mean, in two senses. One, eventually what product managers do, and I think Dean touched upon it like very briefly before, is influence. I mean, that is the key skill of product managers, or the key job of a product manager. I know it sounds weird to say that, because product managers also need to build things and ship features and and talk to customers and build roadmaps and do a lot of other things. But at the end of the day, if I had to synthesize, like, is rallying people around decision making and like making sure that people get where the product is going and why. And so that skill for me is very difficult to replace with the current AI, that exists in the world. I mean, I'm really ignoring. I mean, and I hear some people here saying, and I agree. I mean, of course, this technology will evolve, and I have no doubt about it. It will evolve. It will become better, more accurate. I don't know, by the way, if it will get to be a live technology. And again, if you learn a little bit about like LLMs and their limitations, like at least currently, the computing power needed to keep that model as live learning is very complex, and also difficult, again, from a, like, you might end up with very weird results if you go with unstructured data, which is what the web is when it starts. And so that really is a tough nut to crack, and it's not by coincidence. And I think the fact that Bing is doing now a mix of live and like curated results is actually search plus OpenAI kind of results. I don't think they're actually updating that. So anyway, long story short, I think that in the foreseeable future, it's not going to be a replacement in any shape or form. By the way, I would say it's going to become a big aid. I think it's going to become, I think probably going to become one of the biggest aids to product managers. And so definitely a space where if I were you, as in if you, the audience here, I would definitely invest the time in learning and using it as much as possible. Not just because to be trendy and to be, like because it's cool, etc. But I really think that it's a space that can really assist a lot of people in doing their work. Again, if you use it in the right way rather than in the hasty way. So I agree with the audience. It sounds like a lot of people are either optimistic about it, about the future as humans, or if not that, at least I don't believe that's going to change. I don't know, Dean, what your thoughts are about that.
Oh, I agree. Look, more than likely, your job is not going to be replaced by the technology. It's going to be replaced by that person who learns how to use this technology better than you. So if you stick to building trust, influence without authority is about trust. So if you think about building trust with your partners, your stakeholders, so forth, with storytelling, with study, with simulation, with scaffolding, with shaping around the problem space, you're going to do just fine. And you're going to find that tools such as ChatGPT and others are going to help you augment your work. But if all you are is a Jira slinging ticket monkey, if people are just pushing features down and all you're doing is slinging tickets, you might want to think about changing your game a bit.
Yes, I agree. And okay, I think with that, we have last 5 minutes. Should we go to the next slide?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it. Yes, so we've got some very exciting special offers for both of our groups. So please check these out. Craft.io has 20% off on all plans. So I don't know, Elad, if you want to speak to that for a minute or not.
Yeah, I mean, basically, again, as part of this special webinar, we're offering 20% off of all the plans we have on Craft.io. So I think we'll share the link on the
She's got it in there, yeah.
There you go. So we have the link on the chat. So we have a special landing page for that. So if you want to take advantage of that, just go ahead and of course, feel free to look around craft.io on our website and see what it can help you with. We're a product management platform helping product teams build product with confidence. So that's on our end. Hopefully that people find that useful. And Dean, on your side, or Kate?
Yeah, absolutely. So 20% off all in-person and live online courses during the month of March. So this is product pick'em is the code, and we would love to have you in our courses. Learn more from folks like Dean or Dean himself, and we're excited to see you in our classes. Yeah.
Perfect.
Well, thank you for joining. Dean or Elad, do you have any last final words to part with?
Yeah. Stay in touch. Let us know your experiments.
Yeah.
It would be great to start, with the folks on the call, it would be great to start a thread. We'll share some thoughts on a doc or a slide, but absolutely, if we can make this a community thing and everybody can share their own prompts or ideas of how to use it, we can make this a nice collaborative environment for everybody to kind of share thoughts on this amazing tool.
Love it. Well, thank you both for your insight and your passion on this topic. And I appreciate all of the folks who joined us today. It is certainly an interesting and an emerging topic. So thank you so much and have a wonderful rest of your